Hello Internet, my name is Nebulous. Now, contrary to popular belief, your KD ratio actually isn't the most important statistic for determining how good of a player you are. Kind of a crazy concept, I know. We've all heard the same thing over and over and over again. Your stats don't matter, stats don't tell the whole story, you shouldn't focus on your stats, your KD ratio, blah blah blah. And I completely agree with them for the most part. Your general stats, like your kill-death ratio, really doesn't matter as long as you're pulling your weight. If you're playing Ash but dropping a donut after 4 or 5 rounds, you should probably swap off and play something more support-oriented. But what if I told you there is actually a statistic that can roughly gauge how good of a player you are, that you should be focusing on to improve pretty much every area of your gameplay? Well, there is. Let's talk about it.
For the love of God, just don't fucking peek!
Before we go any further, if you like the videos that I make on this channel, you'll probably enjoy my live streams over on Twitch. We play a bunch of Siege and other games. I spend a lot of time talking to chat and answering all of your questions, so if that sounds like your cup of tea, I stream every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Links are in the description down below. If you're somewhat familiar with the pro or competitive community, you'll probably already have an idea of what we're talking about today. But if you're not, the stat or rating that we're focusing on in today's video is cost. Cost is a stat that tracks basically how influential and how impactful you are in any given round. But you're probably wondering, what is cost? What does it stand for? How does it actually apply to me? Well, cost is a rating that's broken down into 4 parts: K for kills, O for objective play, S for survival, and T for trades. Now, in this video, I'm not trying to suggest that you should start an Excel spreadsheet to track your rank performance, but instead to highlight the 4 important parts of Siege's gameplay that you should be focusing on, particularly if you're solo or duo queuing. I think there's a common idea out there that you can't rely on random teammates at all and that you need to do everything yourself in order to win. And while this is an okay sentiment, 99% of us aren't pro players and we can't do everything ourselves. What most of us can do though is play the operators our team needs and do as much as we can to play the objective and play with our teammates. Because at the end of the day, Siege is a team-based game, and whether you're 5-stacked or solo doesn't change the fact that you'll need to work as a team in order to win more rounds. So I mentioned the 4 parts that make up cost. Let's now break each part down and see how it can actually apply to your ranked matches. And we're going to start with K for kills. Now, you'd think this category is relatively self-explanatory, right? But it's slightly more involved than you might think. Imagine for a second that you're playing a ranked match, you start on defense and you lose all 3 rounds, you're down 3-0, but each of those 3 rounds, you are the last alive in a 1v5 scenario, so your teammates have no kills, you're left in 1v5s every round, and each round, you manage to get 4 out of the 5 kills for the clutch. So you finish your defense half and you've got 12 kills, your first instinct might be to flame your team for not helping at all, and making you do all the work, and you might feel pretty good that your stats say you've got a 12 and 3 KD, but the thing is, you've contributed just as much to the game as your teammates who have 0 kills have. It sounds backwards, doesn't it? Well, those 12 kills you've got are what's known as impactless frags, or exit frags. In other words, they're meaningless. They don't add anything towards winning the game, and that's the ultimate end goal. They may make you feel more confident and make your KD look nice, but that's about all they do. See, there's 2 types of kills in Siege, impactful and impactless frags. And this concept comes from the fact that, as I said, the only thing that matters is whether you win or lose. If all of your kills come from rounds that your team loses, then you're really not doing much to help the team, because ultimately, unless you can clutch those 1v5 scenarios and get all 5 kills, they mean nothing. Now, this isn't meant to try and discourage you. All I'm trying to show is that just because you have a ton of kills each game, it doesn't make you any better or worse than your teammates. Alright, next up is O for objective play. Now, in a competitive environment, objective play is very cut and dry. It's based and calculated on whether you either plant the bomb or you defuse it. So we're going to slightly blur the actual definition for our rank purposes. Simply put, to make sure you're playing the objective efficiently, you need to make sure you're doing a mixture of things. Primarily, and this is particularly the case if you're solo, you need to be playing the right operators, whatever the team needs. If you're attacking and someone picks a thermite, but no one picks an operator to clear away the wall denial, that's what you need to play. If your team picks a bunch of operators that don't have explosives, you should play the fragger role like an Ash or Zofia so you can deal with whatever utility the defenders have set up. And if no one on your team plays a soft breacher, then you need to pick up the sledge or the buck for your team. However, it doesn't just stop there though. Just because you pick the operators your team needs, you need to also make sure you're playing your operator's role correctly. So if you're playing the soft breacher, you need to focus on completing that goal, meaning getting the map control you need to do the vertical destruction on the bomb site, and if you're playing operators with explosives, you need to make sure you're using them to clear away any evil eyes, deployable shields, whatever. Essentially, for objective play, you need to focus on actually achieving something within the round, while making sure to play whatever operator you pick correctly and not just hunting for kills. So that covers K and O. Let's move on to our third stat, which is S, or survival rating. There's not too much to cover with this, as, well, all the information's in the name. How many rounds out of the total rounds played did you survive? Pretty simple. But depending on your playstyle, this is going to have a varying importance to you. If you have a tendency to play more roaming heavy operators, then survival will be a big area for you to focus on, as your ability to delay the attackers or get a kill and fall back and survive is hugely important to be a good roamer. Basically, knowing how aggressive you can be and when you should fall back to survive longer into the round is a huge skill for a roamer, but if you tend to play more support and anchor oriented operators, then your survival should be decently high regardless, as long as you're playing your operators correctly. The same thing goes for attack as well. If you tend to play more entry fragging operators, your survival will be lower than if you're playing a hard breacher, because as the entry fragger, you'll be taking more gunfights. So again, knowing when to be aggressive and knowing when to use your utility like flashbangs and stuns to swing gunfights in your favor is quite important, whereas a lot of your time playing hard breach will be spent in relative safety, droning for your teammates and staying alive to plant the bomb, so your survival rating will naturally be quite high. So now we get to the last and probably least practiced skill in Ranked, and that would be the T, meaning trades. As in, how often do you quickly kill an enemy that just killed your teammate? Or how often can you trade your teammate's life for an enemy's life? Now, when I say this is the least practiced skill of all the things we've talked about in this video, I don't mean that in a bad way, as being able to trade your teammates efficiently is pretty difficult even in high levels of competitive play, let alone Ranked, and even worse if you're solo queuing. It's difficult to explain because you would think being able to kill enemies that have just killed your teammates would be relatively straightforward, but there's so much more to being able to trade effectively than just playing close by to your teammates. One of the biggest parts of trading is having good communication between you and your teammates, particularly on attack. If you're both trying to swing a bunkered down defender, you need to be peeking the same angles at the same time, using your utility effectively, and you need to have good timing with your teammates so you don't just set the defender up to take two separate 1v1 gunfights. So obviously this is a really difficult thing to do in Ranked, where often your communication is going to be lackluster at best. Combine that with the fact that, and this is something that you'll always see me saying on my stream, it can be super difficult to know when you should play together with your random teammates. You can try and play close by them to try and trade them and follow them into the building, and help them do whatever they're trying to do, but 9 out of 10 times, they haven't done any work to drone out what they're pushing. Their plan is to literally just crouch walk halfway across the map, face checking every corner they can. So when you go in with them, you inevitably just wind up both dying, maybe trading one defender out. So while you should definitely try and play with your teammates in order to trade them out if they die, you should take this with a pinch of salt and use your game sense to figure out if what they're doing is actually beneficial or not. Alright, so now we know all the details and things we should focus on, how can the stuff in this video actually make me a better player, you might ask? Should I focus on kills and surviving if I'm a fragger? Should I focus on objective play if I'm a support player? And the answer is no. There's a reason that cost isn't all separated into different ratings, and it's all under one roof, because you need to be accomplishing as many of the goals as possible. Yes, as a support player, you'll probably have slightly higher objective play than a fragger, and a fragger may have more kills than a support player, but as a player, you need to be focusing on doing all 4 to be a well-rounded player and to improve yourself in-game. Other than that though, that about wraps up today's video. I hope you've all learned a thing or two and enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to click like down below. If not, feel free to dislike. Of course, if you did enjoy the video, I do post new videos weekly, so be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. And of course, if you're a fan of my content, be sure to check me out on Twitch next time I'm live. And if you're interested, we have an awesome Discord where I love answering questions and hanging out with all of you guys, so be sure to join that. Links for everything are, as always, in the description down below. And as always, happy gaming.
1 op 4 remaining.
Kill him, go,
Down
go,
to 1
go,
friendly.
go.
You located.